So Qvinci for Accountants is a solution that has evolved from Qvinci's standard offering. Our standard legacy offering has existed in its current state for approximately 4 years. And really, Qvinci historically has been known for multi-file consolidation via dynamic mapping to a standard chart of accounts. Well, Qvinci for Accountants is the next step in our evolution as a cloud-based automation system. And what we are offering to you as an accountant today is a Qvinci portal. The Qvinci portal allows accounting firms to essentially collaborate over all of your client files. The idea behind it is to deliver a unified experience to your firm so that your accountants can simply update notes in one place and another accountant can see it in a different place, so that you can see specifically where a client is as it relates to financial reporting, which separates us to a degree from the QuickBooks Online for Accountants model, being that we give you the ability to work with clients in that type of format with QuickBooks Desktop, with Xero as well, and also see financial data that is imperative to understanding the status of your clients so that you can really realize that kind of industry movement that is the firm of the future. So, sync solution. We currently sync data. Qvinci as a product currently syncs data actively from QuickBooks Desktop, all versions back to 2009. We pull data actively on a daily basis from QuickBooks Online and from Xero, and even include systems like Excel or MYOB for those that maybe aren't on one of what we would consider the major market-leading platforms in the United States and worldwide. We allow you to perform packaging and publishing. This system has evolved through working with our current accounting clients, and these range from some of the largest CPA firms in the United States all the way down to the individual pro advisor that is running a part-time type bookkeeping practice. And the problem that was really being presented as a function of some of the other systems on the market, specifically a couple of Thomson Reuters products, being sunsetted, is that, hey, I really want to embrace cloud or really want to embrace value-based pricing as a firm. But as such, I've got to be able to scale, and I've got to be able to do it efficiently and effectively so that I can maximize on the value-add opportunities to my clients. And so a big problem that was presented was automating reporting, and specifically automating monthly financial statement preparation whenever what comes out of QuickBooks isn't necessarily always ideal, or what we would consider, and even by QuickBooks' own admission, a completely professional presentation as it relates to having your headers, having your footers, having the right lines bolded, the right lines highlighted, and then putting that information together in a seamless manner so that you're not having to basically burn potential utilization hours trying to provide your client with something that they're probably effectively already paying for. And then lastly is report authoring. There is a level of standardization that that we have heard that a lot of clients look for, and that a lot of our firm clients look for, and that, I need to put together a very standard package that consists of some comparative P&Ls, a balance sheet statement, a cover letter, and some AR/AP aging statements, and I need to be able to send it to my customer. But there's a layer past that, and the layer past that is the work that oftentimes is being done in Excel currently, and that's, I really want to add value to my client. I want to demonstrate to them that I understand their business, and I can actually provide them something that focuses them on what's important for their business, as opposed to simply giving them a report that they may or may not pay attention to the right items. And so you, being positioned as a trusted advisor and an accounting professional, have the ability to demonstrate that level of understanding and also add that value to your client through creating customized KPIs within Qvinci. So what does Qvinci for Accountants do exactly? Well, we start by syncing data from your accounting software on a daily basis, or oftentimes daily basis, with the idea of giving you as up-to-date as possible information to work with within Qvinci, and really unifying your reporting environment so that you're no longer having to have yourself or your team members logging into various remote desktop servers and then logging into QuickBooks and then logging into a QuickBooks file. The idea is you log into Qvinci once, And you can move seamlessly without having to do any additional work or waste any additional time, moving from clients that have zero all the way to clients that may be on QuickBooks Desktop 2010 hosted at Right Networks, as an example, as one of our partners. And do that within tenths of a second instead of burning valuable minutes, and in some cases when you tally those up, man hours or person hours, simply just trying to get to where you need to be. We then coordinate all staff across all clients using the portal. I made mention of the portal on the previous slide, and the idea behind the portal is to give you all of the information that may be pertinent, even from a consulting perspective, in one page in which you can see very quickly if you've got a problem with a specific client, or if a specific client is on a downward trend. You can, instead of having to go do that login practice that I just mentioned a minute ago, you can simply click on the report data, and we'll take you straight to that client within Qvinci and the specific report in question, allowing you once again to be more efficient, to be more effective. So past that, creating reporting templates, including consolidation and KPI reports. I mentioned one of Qvinci's core competency, and one of the places we actually have several patents is taking what amounts to clients that have multiple files or multiple locations, and they have an independent accounting file for each one, or in some cases even more complex, several accounting files with classes or departments underneath those client accounting files that you then need to consolidate or break apart. That's where Qvinci really got its start and where we've made our name, because we allow you to say, okay, you know what? One file may call this a particular chart of accounts item rent. Another one may call it lease. But when we perform a gap consolidation, we need to unify that language so we don't wind up with a 1,000-line nonsensical P&L. And we have mapping technology that is dynamic. So you set it once and effectively forget it. And moving forward, you get an on-demand consolidated P&L. But more importantly, the back end of that technology is very much like Excel, with the idea of allowing you to create a dynamically updating report that you can create once, and then, a month from now we open it up, new data has been refreshed into the system, being that we're syncing the data on a daily basis. And the output is that you effectively automate a process that's really been taking, from the feedback that we've received, a substantial amount of time for those, what I would consider high-touch clients within your portfolio. So styling reports and documents per your standard. Whenever we're working with clients, oftentimes we're going to ask them, give me an example of what you currently provide your clients when you're generating a monthly financial statement or a quarterly or annual. And it's absolutely amazing how complex and specific just the styling alone can be. And a lot of that represents your firm. It represents your brand. And it's one of the, to a degree, it's one of the more important things you do for your client. Because sure, I think of some of the folks that I work with that use QuickBooks Online. There's absolutely nothing that prevents that client, your client, from going into QuickBooks Online and running their own P&L. But oftentimes you're providing them with a package as a service. And the objective is to make that package as turnkey as possible so that they have the confidence to say, you know what, I know this is a professional presentation. I know it's been executed as per my particular service provider standards. And I know that I can simply drop that report, print it, and walk into a board meeting and present it to whomever it needs to be presented to. And as such, there's a lot of formatting changes that typically goes into the, frankly, Spartan approach that QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, and Xero provide whenever you drop a report. And so a big value behind what we call styling and publishing faculties with Qvinci is you can do those things once. You can set up those styles once. You can set up that, what I call that brand standard or firm standard once. And then you can publish it across the plurality of clients that you have. And it really cut a lot of that workload out, increase utilization, and cut down on, I was on the phone with a client the other day, and his biggest frustration was that he had a value-based client that they, were receiving a substantial piece of revenue from, but the work that he was having to put into that they didn't scope around formatting and compiling reports and creating consolidations, he was writing off more than he was making. And it was an absolutely enormous point of frustration for them. Well, that's an absolutely perfect fit for Qvinci. So lastly is the ability to assemble, share, and publish auto-updating packages for all clients. And this really kind of brings it all together. We've got automatic data. We've got the ability to customize reports. We deliver to you the ability to style reports. And the net outcome past the portal, which obviously, like I mentioned before, and I'm going to show you this here in a few minutes, past all the collaboration and really putting together the data is simply taking what is an operational cost for your firm, and oftentimes one that there's no real realization associated with, and automating it at a very reasonable price. So what are the values provided? As mentioned a few seconds ago, recover billable hours. We're going to collect that financial data on an automated basis. We're going to allow you to set up workflows within the portal that says, okay, I as an accountant have a team of 25 bookkeepers, and my team of 25 bookkeepers each has an individual responsibility, or a responsibility in the chain of activities that need to occur for us to satisfy our SLAs to our clients. The beauty behind setting up customized workflows is it's all managed from the same place. And if you've got a list of activities that involve meet with client, input invoices, collect financial reporting, close books, send the reports to the client, follow up with the client, you can provide a seamless experience and really receive in return a seamless management experience to your entire team, in which if one person updates a client, it's seen across everyone that has access to that client. And in addition to that, from the portal, you can drill down very quickly to reporting level data for clients without having to mess with having to remember logins, without having to mess with having to log out of one remote session and into another remote session. So automate client reporting. Whenever we automate client reporting, this is all really a big function of recovering billable hours. Simply being able to style, group, and publish reports, it really speaks for itself. That is where you're going to see true realization and true utilization upticks. And then lastly, save hours spent by creating and publishing reports for every client. Some of my clients work with a lot of what I would consider the heavy accounting industry outsourcing clients or businesses. An example I'd give you is like medical. It seems like every medical practice that we work with has a slightly different setup and is metricing something different out of their business. And instead of having to do the work associated with manually compiling information every month or whatever it is on the iteration that you provide them with financial reports, Qvinci, you can set it all up once, and you will end up with what's called a dynamically updating template that you can simply reuse in the future, because year to date is something that's always going to change. And as long as we have updated data to work with, we can provide you with an updated report. So what is the Qvinci process? How does this work for you? We start by saying, we add your staff to the portal. We build out an account and we say, okay, who are the staff members that are going to be working within this portal, and what level of access should they have? Not every, for instance, CPA should have access to every single client within a firm, and conversely, not every bookkeeper should have access to every single client within a firm. And so we do have a detailed tiered hierarchy as it relates to permissions, so that when we add these users, we can define who they are and how they're going to operate within Qvinci to ensure that people who see what they need to know and don't see what they should not see. So then we're going to take a client list from you, and that client list consists of entity names. Because they're individual operating clients with one reporting entity, great. We treat entity and client as the same. But there are many instances where we may need to perform a consolidation for one of your clients as well. So we may have a client name, or what you think of as a client name, with a list of locations underneath it that we sync as individual reporting entities. Then we're going to link and sync your client files. This is actually a very clean process, particularly if you worked with any other software on the market, in which case, if we're dealing with a client that has a QuickBooks Online file, the workflow looks like you simply download the Qvinci Sync app to whatever the system houses the QuickBooks application that is attached to that file. Go through. There's a handshake process that takes about 5 minutes. And then after that, it's set it and forget it. It's simply going to sync the data every time you open the QuickBooks file. If it's QuickBooks Online or Zero, from a reporting entity perspective, the process takes about 30 seconds. You log into Qvinci. Once the client name is defined and we know who it is, you simply say, click on client name, we're syncing to QuickBooks Online, here's my QuickBooks Online credentials, I authorize, and you're off and running. Create report templates. Depending on what you're trying to accomplish, if you're looking to do what I would consider a enterprise-wide automation, then we've got a way that you can write templates that will fit every single client within your space, or a group of clients that has a specific type of package that you provide to them. Once that is taken care of, and from a workflow perspective, I would suggest that as your first step, we can move into creating the customized reporting and styling reporting for specific clients that have specific needs. But why not start seeing the utilization uptick on the front end by creating templates that really work for everybody? And then lastly, publish reports. Publish reports and provide them to your clients, and even those that you may not provide financial reporting to as it stands right now, it can be a great value add to your system, and in a lot of ways turn a client that maybe is low touch, i.e. a tax and assurance client, for instance, somebody that you maybe touch once a year. Well, if you're wanting to move to that trusted advisor type role and get out of that very, very transactional method of managing and frankly billing your client, this can be a great way to do it. And simply, you know what, for being part of my particular firm, I'm going to provide you this reporting on some sort of basis. And it, give you the opportunity to maybe start having some further discussions with that client. So what are the features within Qvinci? And then after this slide, we're going to jump over to the solution itself. We have the Qvinci Advisor SKU and the Qvinci Enterprise SKU. You can actually mix these licenses in the same environment. We do not have to be homogeneous. So, but there are some rules. If you have over 250 clients, then we are obligated to utilize Qvinci Enterprise from a scale perspective. So as such, we have a numeric account for Qvinci Enterprise, but when you move to Enterprise, it is unlimited as it relates to client files. We've got clients right now in the franchise space with over 2,000 independent reporting files. So template styling and publishing is available at both levels of SKU, and Qvinci Enterprise enables you to do consolidation for specific clients on an as-needed basis. And then the portal access is seamless regardless of which type of license you're using. So around that, let's go ahead and bounce over to the Qvinci demo account. And I'm going to give you guys some examples as to how some of the folks that we have on board right now are using this, and some ways that you could use it to really realize some efficiency upside within your practice. Yes. So this is the Qvinci for Accountants portal. For those of you who've seen QuickBooks Online for Accountants, the user interface is going to look fairly familiar, and a lot of that has to do with the partnership that we have with QuickBooks and Intuit specifically, and going for a somewhat seamless approach. Now, keep in mind, the data that we reflect is more often than not synced on a daily basis. There are some exclusions from this depending on what type of software you use. But all versions of QuickBooks, in fact, versions of QuickBooks that Intuit does not even support any longer, i.e. all the way back to 2009, can be involved in our system and will sync on an automated basis. So in this example, we've got the Qvinci portal, and this would be as if I was, for instance, a bookkeeper that I handle 4 clients. Or 3 clients, really. 3 clients, and one of my clients is a consolidation of 2 different operating files. I've got my client down the left side, and this is how my firm thinks of them. And then we've got the reporting entity down right here in your second column. And this is demonstrative of, okay, 1 client, but 2 reporting locations that we'll need to consolidate. We break down your file type here. We give you the ability to input manually a closing date. The idea behind this is in the instance where you have a client managing the accounting file and you are not, and you're simply providing them reporting and some level of review on, whatever the iteration is that you're working with them on, we opted to deliver this on a manual basis because there's a chance your client may think of their closing date differently than you do as the accountant. And so, as such, anytime you need to update a closing date, you can simply come in here, define to us what that closing date is, and you can be confident that that date is set to your firm's standards. We give you the last sync date. This tells you how fresh the data in the file is, and as you can see in this case, we've synced both of these files as of yesterday, and we've got a couple more here, being QuickBooks Desktop. We sync these every time you open the file. And so, may not always be as of that day, but it will at worst be as of the previous session. I'd made mention of some workflows. And when we say workflows, what we really mean are logical ways for you to segment or break up your clients by either activity or by some definition. So what that means is when I create a workflow, I can name the workflow. And so for those of you who have, for instance, 2 or 3 different industries that you work heavily in, you can always add another column to this that is industry. And then you define what group of drop-downs your industries will be and select it and, create filter groups or create what I call quick tabs. But in this particular example, what we've got is a series of tasks that need to be handled on a monthly basis for these clients. We need to meet with the client. We need to receive their actual transactions. We need to make sure the transactions are input and cleaned up. We need to review the books. We need to close them, style them, and then send reports to them. And so let's pretend for a second that I'm a bookkeeper and there's a CPA that also works with the IC's client, and they're responsible for some of these tasks, and I'm responsible for other ones. Well, when I log in, I'm going to see what the last tasks that's been accomplished for them are, and if I need to update it per some activity that I've done, I make that update whenever I exit Qvinci. Anyone inside of this client, whenever they refresh their page, will see what the most recent task that's been accomplished has been. The idea here is to get everybody on the same page and cut down on email traffic, cut down on just back and forth. Now, imagine if you had 100 clients and you're responsible for closing the books. That's your job. You can come up here to sort, and you can sort by a specific stage in the workflow, or you can filter by specific stages or industries in the workflow to make it very easy to carve down to whatever set of group that needs activity from you. The last customizable field here is going to be notes. It can be a great way to very quickly and concisely set an expectation related to a specific client or location. I need somebody to send a 1040 to Bob. We've got a meeting scheduled for 11:05 at this particular time. Just a really effective way, and being that it's all housed within our cloud, you do not need to worry about security. A really effective way to make sure that everybody's on the same page whenever they see this information, so you don't have to ask, hey, where are we at here? We know where we're at. We're at this stage in activity, and here's the last pertinent notes for this client. Now, I'd made mention of us bringing reporting level data into our portal and providing it to you in a really clear and concise format. This is really here so that you really understand where your clients are at financially without having to actually go into their reports to find it. I think in terms of my firms that have consulting services that they're looking to sell as a value add to their clients, or wanting to grow into that type of approach. Well, here I can still see my clients, I can still see my entities, but we let you know, hey, are we getting paid? Are we paying our bills? What's the cash stance of our particular client? Where do our key 3 financial ratios stand as it relates to current, quick, and debt to equity? And then the other big ones are performance last month to the same period last year with a percent change next to it, and really highlighting where we may not be doing we may not be doing as well as we'd like to. And the idea behind this is to put a lot of a very quick read and clear information in front of you to give you an idea of where your clients stand and make it very easy for you to understand why. And when I say why, here we're trending down 47% last month to the same period last year. Well, if I want to know why, I simply click on that number, and we'll take you straight into that client, that reporting entity, and the report that information was derived from, with the idea of maybe demonstrating to you, okay, there's simply been a downtick in a specific line item or some specific thing within their business. Or conversely, if this number is 0, maybe we just haven't gotten the invoices taken care of yet, and it can be a way for you to set a task or to accomplish a task on your own for the rest of your team. We're going to stick primarily to the new things that have been added in Qvinci for accountants, but I will run very quickly over some of the other items. So that is the portal in a nutshell. Now, along with Qvinci for accountants, we have added several, or we still have our original solution embedded in it. And our original solution, I'll give you an example as it relates to coffee shops. Coffee shops is actually two different files that we're consolidating. And if you run into our dashboard for Coffee Shops Unlimited, what I'm looking at right now is a consolidated view from a dashboard perspective of two independent files. We're showing you two files right now. This could be 1,000. I've got an example that's over 2,000, like I had mentioned before. And the beauty behind it is you really get an idea of where this enterprise is going as a whole versus where this specific file is going or where this class is going. And anytime I need to very quickly and easily jump to one or a combination of several of them, I can simply click into that, and there we have it. So Qvinci for Accountants is not just for you. In addition to that, we're regularly approached by clients looking to provide that wow factor for their clients, for the folks that they're providing professional services for. And this, a lot of times, is something that they're looking for. Well, I'd mentioned that usership within Qvinci is unlimited earlier, and there's no cost. So at no additional cost to you guys, you have the opportunity to solve a problem for yourselves, potentially, as it relates to collaboration and efficiency. But why not go ahead and add your clients to this as well so that they get to take advantage of the upside of an automated dashboard, particularly if they're a consolidation client. So moving from here, we have the same core reports that Qvinci has always offered, which is a P&L, a balance sheet, statement of cash flow, all the way down to things like expense by vendor, sales by customer, and trial balance. We offer all of these reports on a consolidated basis, even overcoming those differences in charts of accounts, so providing a true generally accepted accounting practice consolidation. Unlike a lot of softwares out there they'll allow you to take one of the charts of accounts and the other chart of accounts and then combine them, and you end up with some wild 900-line P&L that's effectively useless. In this case, we're going to give you something clear and concise that's functional. But past that, I made mention of automating reporting for you. And I'm going to give you a very high-level example here. If I want to run a profit and loss, and when I run that profit and loss, a report that I provide to every single client on an iterative basis that involves work outside of something like QuickBooks is a period-over-period report for this calendar year to date, giving us a side-by-side representation. And I'm going to come in here and memorize this report. And keep in mind, I'm memorizing a template. I'm not memorizing a report. They're two vastly different things. Because within Qvinci, when I memorize something, I'm actually memorizing change based on a core. And so if I want to get rid of this information here, because totals, we don't really want totals. What we really want is variance. And we want variance to equal that cell divided by that cell, as an example. But we want to present this as a percentage. I can very easily build and customize a report much like you would do in Excel. But the difference is unlike Excel, where you have to go get the data from QuickBooks, you have to export the data from QuickBooks, and you either have to be a macro wizard and plug it into a macro template, or you have to simply manually do a bunch of steps. And those steps could be things like bolding these lines and underlining them. They could be things like taking this line and turning it green, or adding something else to it, even maybe creating a little custom KPI off here to the side. Those are all things that whenever you build on a foundation report, which is where we started with, we defined a frequency, we defined who we're reporting against, and we defined a period and added options. Those are all things that apply to every single client you have. And as long as I'm changing things, like for instance this expense line that is going to exist on every single P&L, these periods which are going to exist on every single P&L, or creating a dynamic column, which is not going to be a unique thing, I can take this report, I can save it, and then I can publish it across a plurality of users, and all of my changes will carry over, but build their data into it. And since we sync data every day, and we set this report as year to date, next month we're going to add December. And we're going to sync December's data as we move. And so you can open this report and download it at any point, and it's going to be accurate as per what's within the accounting file at that point. The final experience and the objective here is to allow you to use that technology and it can get fairly complicated in some cases from a client need or client desire perspective, but to use that technology and build out a library of reports and then publish, because some reports may be specific to a client, other reports may be general for your entire practice. Publish via share that report to other users. And then if I were to come up here and change from Coffee Shops Unlimited, say, to John's Automotive, okay, and then open up one of the reports that has been created under Coffee Shops Unlimited with some rules around it, it's going to create that report, use the changes that we've built into place, and generate it based off John's Automotive's data. You can create things like a document library, and document library would consist of a cover page, for instance, a table of contents. A lot of times on your cover letter, you may want to insert a relative client name or insert a relative date, so that every time you pull this reporting package, it's going to insert the current date, and it's going to insert the client name that you have open, with the objective of an end user experience of being able to simply, okay, well, I need to run whatever our standard reporting package is for Coffee Shops Unlimited for last month, because it's time to provide them with their reporting. I'm going to click on download. It's going to download a PDF for me that consists of a series of reports and a couple of documents. And here we have it. And this is a live document that is updating and changing as per the information within Qvinci. And so that's the real power behind Qvinci for accountants, and giving you that collaboration, giving you that automation, and then allowing you to take those hours that we're effectively delivering realization to you in your practice on, and repurpose them for something that may be more value to you, whether it's delivering more value to clients that have special needs, or whether it's simply finding something that would be more margin rich, like for instance, a billable service. So I want to close by opening up the floor for questions. This is all of Qvinci's standard contact information. Like I said, my name is Roman Delino. I'm an account executive. I cover what we define as the Midwest and the Great Lakes. But we've got a fabulous team here between myself, Simon, Caitlin, Alvar, and Kim. And if you have any questions, if you're not working with us already and you're interested in learning more, maybe getting a little bit more detailed demonstration, I beg you, reach out to the information that you see on the screen. And one of us will get you to the right person if you're not where you should be, and hopefully start improving some efficiencies for your firm and delivering value to you here pretty quickly. So I do want to open the floor for questions. If you have a question, don't hesitate to raise your hand through the little chat window, and we'll open it up and unmute you. Otherwise, I will stand by. Did get looks like a question through chat that I wanted to address for everyone. Yes, the question is yes. The question is, can we brand the portal? Particularly, and I would imagine if you're looking at this from a client-facing perspective, and absolutely. If we pull the portal back over real quick, up here where it says Qvinci, if you've got a .png file or a vertex file for a logo that I believe is 50 by 300, and don't quote me on that, pixels, then we can absolutely brand this with your logo. And then, of course, on any document or report, if you wanted to add your logo to it, it's as simple as basically copy and pasting the image to it, and that's where it will reside henceforth. Okay. Got a couple of chat questions about how do we differ from Fathom. And I will summarize this. I think Fathom is very strong at data visualization. That's really their core competency. Our largest differences come in this. We've got a patented technology that allows you to truly and dynamically consolidate differing charts of accounts from differing types of software, which is exclusive to Qvinci. We're the only people who actually hold patents on that. That have been verified and established, and so on and so forth. But B, we are very focused on reporting. We do offer a dashboard widgetry, but our core competency is delivering you detailed reporting information on an automated basis. If it needs to be consolidated, fantastic. If it needs to be standardized and published across multiple users, as I understand it, there's nobody else on the market that's delivering that to you from an end user experience currently, particularly as it relates to dealing with QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online, Xero, MYOB, and even Excel. And the other big ones, there's a substantial cost difference, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Okay. Yeah. Another question: can a firm have multiple portals or limit staff access to specific segments of clients or specific information? And the answer is actually, I would suggest having one portal and then using permissions to say, okay, this particular staff member has access to this group of information. This particular staff member has access to this group of information. And there may be a manager or, for instance, an accountant over those staff members. They may have access to both groups of information. There may be 2 or 3 other groups that that person doesn't have access to. When I say that we've got what's called a tiered permissions, that is what I mean. A permission set can be defined by a client. It can be defined by a reporting entity. It can be defined by a level of access or control across the entire portal or sections of the portal. I had a question about creating a custom KPI. I will emphasize this. With Qvinci, the way that you would create a custom KPI is actually through our reporting itself. So there are different ways to present KPIs. There's some that think of KPIs as visual data, i.e. a chart or graph. And there are others that think of KPIs by the definition, which is a key performance indicator. It's essentially honing somebody's focus on something that matters to their business so that they, shut out the things that don't, right? And so to give you an idea of how I would say creating a KPI, outside of my accounting business here at Qvinci, I also work with restaurants. And restaurants have a very standard KPI that they look for, and it's specifically income per square foot. And the reason is because the quickest way to run a restaurant on the ground is to not have occupancy, and the best way to define occupancy from a financial standpoint is income. So an example of what that would look like, if I wanted to create a basic KPI that I wanted to provide to my client, and I say basic because you can get much more complicated than this. Let's say last month, okay? And I'm going to do a bi-month report because, once again, I'm trying to focus them on something specific. And in this case, here are my revenue items. If I come up here and do something and not hit the cancel button, do something like this. Open up the custom report builder. Last month's a dynamically updating range. Last month is always going to be last month, so when I open this in December, it's going to be November instead of October. Okay? We can always back 2 months up for those who maybe don't close their books for once every 30 to 60 days if needed. But the idea here is to focus what our client is seeing. And so if I'm trying to deliver something very specific to them, and we're looking for, we'll do it like this. We're going to give them their income per square foot, but we're also going to give them their net income per square foot. I can do something as simple as deleting this information or hiding it. I can delete all of this information, and even though it comprises what net income consists of, the way our system works, net income will still always be accurate even though this data is no longer present. So I'll give you an example. I've deleted that. I know that my particular, and this is a quick and dirty version, I know this location is 1,500 square feet, so this equals that divided by 1,500, okay? Drag this down, turn this into a financial, and then hide that. title the report Income Per Square Foot Report, and it gives you, depending on the detail within your chart of accounts, your income per square foot. This can be substantially more complicated than this if you so choose. Another one that we see a lot is prime cost, as a for instance, which is a margin calculation minus, minus some other items. I save this, and I rerun this report next month, and what I'm going to be looking at is the income per square foot for November instead of the income per square foot for October like we're looking at now. Any other questions? And the other piece that I will add, and this is future development, but there is intent to add the ability to demonstrate that from a visual perspective in the future, but that is a future development, most likely looking at probably Q1 next year. Okay. So had a question as far as how the reports are managed. So when you create and save a report, are they posted to you as a user? Are they posted to everyone automatically? How does that work? And the answer is this. When you create a report, there is an exclusive, there's a permission level called report, a custom template professional. And that's someone who, when they create a report, it's going to go to everyone, no matter what. That's a unique permission. It's not something that it's something that we only assign on an asked for basis. But past that, say I'm an individual user, I'm a CPA, and I've got a handful of bookkeepers that work underneath me. When I create a report, until I share that report is for me and me only. Now, if I choose to share said report, what happens is that report will share sideways and down from me. And what I mean by that is in the tiering structure. Let's say I am what's considered a team leader, but not necessarily a manager. As a team leader, then all other team leaders will see the formatted version of my report, but they will only see it as it relates to the changes that I've made, i.e., if I've got access to a client that the person I've shared does not have access to, and they open my report, they're not going to see my client's report. They're going to see the changes that I made to the template with their client's data. Okay, and it works downward as well. So, you know, when I say downward, I mean like even down to location level permissions. I am a bookkeeper and I have access to one client, and you share that report to me, I'll be able to open that report and the data for my client will insert itself into it. I can save as that report and make changes on my own, but I can never make changes that will impact the original saved report. Okay, couple other questions. We have pricing, which forgive me for not covering earlier. The way our pricing works out when we're looking at our licensing is, and we'll back up a second so you guys can see it again. There we go. Qvinci Advisor. So a client that we want to add to the portal, we want to automate reporting for, but we don't need consolidation for. $10 a month, $9.95 specifically. We also always have annual licensing, and for somebody who has a fairly large-scale enterprise volume licensing. Qvinci Enterprise is defined by entity. So in the example that I gave you earlier, which was the Coffee Shops Unlimited. Coffee Shops Unlimited is one client. But within that client, we've got two entities that we're going to allow for individualized reporting and consolidated reporting. In that instance, and so you have to use Enterprise in that case, it's $20 a month per entity. And, you know, those are my clients that have to currently do manual consolidations with any type of regularity. Typically, pretty pleased with that type of pricing, because if you look at it versus the accountant or accounting professional hours being spent doing that work, more often than not, there's some pretty substantial ROI realized immediately. In terms, and there was another question about discounting on pricing. We do offer volume discounts and longer-term licensing. It's really based on the volume that you are committing to and the length of said commitment. We also do offer as part of, if we're looking at a more large-scale volume type agreement, we offer training and also onboarding services as well. There's a bit of scoping involved in that, and it really depends on what is being expected. But that's a conversation that if you want to get into specifics, I would recommend reaching out to our sales line here and let us get you to who you need to speak with, and we can have that discussion. There was a question about, can billing be to a firm itself, and I'm glad you asked. Qvinci is single payer at this point. So what that means is we only accept billing from one place, and typically that's going to be the CPA firm. The thought process is this: when we're working with a CPA client, we understand that in some cases you may try to roll those costs down. I mean, it's a business choice, and we leave that open to you. But yes, if we're doing what we consider the portal rollout with publishing and so on and so forth, the standard Qvinci for accountants model, then we're going to build a CPA firm. Now, there's always instances, I can think of one right now. I'm working with a CPA client that doesn't necessarily provide a regular service for one of their clients, but they've been approached to solve a problem as it relates to reporting consolidation and dashboarding. In that case, we absolutely appreciate the introduction to your client. We will take that client on as a direct client, and we have a referral program that may offer you some benefits, so I'd suggest checking it out. Yeah, there's a question about the $10 per month per entity price point. That is for entities that do not require consolidation, up to 250. Okay. After that, if we have to do consolidation, then the SKU price does go up for that specific client that's requiring consolidation. And also keep in mind, if we're doing a consolidation or a break apart for that matter, because keep in mind, we can sync at the class level as well. So some of my medical practitioners, they may have 4 offices with 10 doctors working between those 4 offices. Each office has a file. Each doctor has a class within those files. And there is immense value to them to be able to say, okay, I need to take all 4 of the classes from the different files and consolidate them into one report. So that's when I would call it a kind of a mix of breaking apart and consolidating. So in that instance, I said 10 doctors and 4 offices. If each office has a doctor class in it, and they're worked in every case, it's actually 40 entities. There's a question if we somehow reach out to get QuickBooks info, or if there's some sort of manual process involved, and I'll run over it again. If they're QuickBooks Online, we actually pull their reporting data every single night. So as long as the information exists in their QuickBooks Online account, it exists within Qvinci the next day. If there's 0, same paradigm. Pull the information actively and automatically, no activity needed from the client or the accountant. If your QuickBooks Desktop, and this includes QuickBooks Desktop hosted and on a standard client PC, whenever that file is opened on a daily basis, presuming that they're connected to the internet, we will automatically extract data. Okay, so the idea is to allow you to offer a high-touch service to your client, but not require any more overhead from your client. And in some cases, it may actually reduce the overhead if they're having to run down reports and send them to you manually. All right. Well, we are up on time at this point. Once again, I really want to thank everybody for joining us, particularly for being as active with the questions. I love to see the engagement, and encourage all parties involved. If you're not already speaking with us, which I definitely see some names I recognize, but if you're not already working with us, give us a good way to contact you with the information on the screen, and we'll get you in touch with the right person and have a little bit more detailed and specific discussion to fit your needs. So thanks again. I'm going to sign off, but we will leave the chat windows open if you want to continue asking any questions there. And we will look forward to talking more. Everybody have a great day, and thank you.